With me today is Stephanie Bown, and Stephanie delivers talks and programs that transform the way leaders and leadership teams connect, align, and inspire. She is the author of Curious, Connected, and Calm: How Leaders Are Better Together, as well as Purpose, Passion, and Performance: How Systems for Leadership, Culture, and Strategy Drive the 3 Ps of High Performance Organizations. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Julie. It's wonderful to be here with you today.
It's so good to have you here. And I think we could go in so many different directions, but I'm really keen to jump into your new book.
Yeah, great.
And the title is Curious, Connected, and Calm, and that suggests key leadership qualities. So why are these 3 attributes so essential for leaders today?
Yeah, look, they are essential. They're essential for leaders and they're essential for teams. So the way that we describe really high-performing teams. But I love the way, your interest here is why do leaders need these 3 qualities? And essentially, the foundation of this book is really about how important curiosity is in today's day. All we know is that things are going to become more turbulent. And of course, in turbulent times, it's like when you're on a plane and it rattles in the air and you start to feel a little anxious.
Yeah.
That feeling is going to continue. And curiosity is an antidote to stress. It helps us be more resilient. It helps us, if we're curious about how we're feeling, why we're feeling it, those emotions can provide us with data, actually. And so it helps us be more resilient. Curiosity helps us be better learners, and it helps us be more creative. Connectedness is really important for leaders and for teams, because when we're more connected, we're able to develop those bonds of trust and respect, which are essential for relationships to flourish. And Of course, connectedness itself is a strength. It's highlighted in the Gallup Key Strengths Finder as an ability to understand the links between all things. And to deal with turbulent times, we need to be able to think systemically. We need to be able to think about the connections between things in order to make better decisions. And of course, calm, who doesn't want a calm leader, right? Calmness
Absolutely.
is, it's about just staying. Resilience is a word that is about being able to bounce back from stress. So calmness is about being able to maintain our composure regardless of the circumstances around us, because of course, when we're stressed, we can't think as clearly as we can as when we're stressed and anxious. So when we're calm, we can think, we can keep our quality of thinking better, but also we believe teams are calm when they believe in each other's abilities to deal with the problems that they're dealing with. So we have each other's backs. We're calm because we know we've got each other. So those 3 characteristics are super important for leaders to emulate, but also for teams to really generate. That's how they start to really amplify their abilities to succeed.
Yes, I love that. And I can see your book behind you. I'm really fascinated about the cover with the camels.
Yes, I've got it here too. There it is. The
Yes.
camels. Yes. Yeah.
What's the what's the importance of the camels in this?
Yeah, look, book cover design is a thing. So the camels are important to me. They're actually also in my logo. Camels are resilient creatures. They're methodical. They have long memories. They work together in teams. And in fact, I talk about good thinkers. I liken them to camels because they're wise, and they build on and draw on their life experiences. So, I say camels are thought leaders. And in addition to all of those things, there's a photo behind me on the wall here about me on a camel trek. This was with my husband when I was in my early 20s and we were adventuring together. And a camel saved his life because he was struck by a scorpion on the foot one morning as we were putting down our camp. And we needed the camel to walk him through to a place where he could get the anti-venom. And it was a bit of a treacherous walk for camels. They don't like steep inclines on sand.
Yep.
Anyway, the camel persevered and it got him there and he survived that experience. So camels are very dear to us.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Lovely. Now, you touched on curiosity before.
Yeah.
But it seems to be something that is quite underrated and incredibly powerful. So why do you think that is? Is it simply a problem within organizations that they're just wanting to go, 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 go and do rather than stop and be curious about a potential problem or issue?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Actually, I just was talking to someone from HR Daily the other day about, is productivity killing innovation?
Yeah.
And I do tend to agree. I think that curiosity is, well, it's powerful because it is our capacity to, it feeds our capacity to learn. And in, today's day with, hybrid workforces and artificial intelligence, that these, we have to learn. We're learning as we go. We've got to learn our way through all of the changes that are happening to us at work at the moment. So curiosity keeps us learning. It keeps our minds open. Einstein said, I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious.
Mm,
And I think that's really powerful, because if you keep asking questions and maintaining that open mindset, you are going to find new answers to existing problems. So it's a really powerful tool. And but I think it's underrated for a number of reasons. I think psychologically we are trained not to be curious when we're young. Our parents tell us to do what they say, and our teachers,
mm.
get frustrated if we ask too many questions in the classroom, understandably. And so we're trained out of that curiosity method. And then in the workplace, we don't want to look stupid, especially if we're leading teams. So sometimes leaders mistake asking questions for looking like you don't have the answers, when in fact, really, it's the question asking that generates that engagement and that buy-in.
Yeah.
But no leader wants to look like they don't have the answer. Some really great leaders that I've met in my time. One of them, Shannon Bennett, who used to own VU Group. He's a great, he's an international chef. But he was like, I want to be the stupidest person in the room. I hire people around me who have the knowledge that I don't have, and I ask all the stupid questions
Yeah.
happily. And that's what creates and generates the curiosity, the engagement of people to really buy into things. So it's very powerful because it allows us to stay resilient. It allows us to remain open, to be learners, and it fosters creativity. But we're not encouraged to be curious
Mm.
because of stigmas, stereotypes, biases, assumptions, norms around leadership that we really need to break through.
Yes, I so agree with that. And it is really interesting that the leaders often, not always,
Mm.
seem to want to or need to know the answer rather than using the collective intelligence of their team. Because there's so much value in that.
Yeah, yeah, there really is. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it is a little bit about being, sometimes I think it comes down to needing our, as leaders, and I count myself as one, but sometimes we need to feed our own egos to prove we've got the knowledge and the source. But what that then does is it just creates dependencies in teams. People,
Yes.
they rely on you for those answers. They expect you to have those answers, and you keep yourself stuck. You keep yourself in a position where no one else can do the job you can do. And we feed ourselves that story. What that does is it limits your growth and professional progression.
Yep.
As a leader, particularly in a corporate environment, you want to develop the capacity of everybody else around you to have
Yeah.
those answers so you can elevate, right? So there's a lot of advantages to switching that mindset, but it does take a little bit of just habit reformation.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. And being curious around that probably.
correct, exactly.
Yeah. Now, something I love in your book is that you emphasize the importance of courageous conversations in teams. So, what makes a courageous conversation, and how can leaders encourage them without causing conflict?
Yes.
Mhm.
So a courageous conversation is one where we directly need to address a dynamic that's not healthy in the team. So a courageous conversation is one where we do feel a little vulnerable.
Mm.
There's an element of interpersonal risk we need to take in order to address the thing that's not working in the team. And so I think that leaders can encourage these kinds of conversations by just remembering a couple of fundamentals. What we want is a team that can have a conversation about anything, where feedback, we can give and receive feedback uh, directly, honestly, openly, in ways that actually helps us all improve our performance.
Mm.
So there's a couple of things that need to happen for that open feedback dialogue to be something that's going to be productive and not cause conflict. And the two fundamental ingredients, I think I might have mentioned them before, is trust
Yeah.
and respect. So we need to establish trust and respect first. And trust is an interesting thing because you need to be vulnerable to trust, and we need to trust to be vulnerable. And as leaders, we can extend the hand of trust first. We can show others that we're willing to be vulnerable, that I'm willing to have a conversation. I don't, this is potentially a challenging conversation. It's uncomfortable for me, but I genuinely care about how we are as a group. And I think
Mm.
this is worth us discussing and talking about. I'm interested in hearing others' points of view on this so that we can come to a new understanding about how we want to operate. And I think if you couch it in those terms and then you're real about your experience and you open the door for vulnerability, you make it safe for others to do the same. So they can start to be honest and real about the challenges in the team. And we create a listening environment for that. But I think the other thing to that is respect. So what is respect? Respect is actually being able to cope with differences. It's
Yes.
about being okay with different opinions and different ways of thinking. So it's not about, where we get into conflict is we turn a conversation into a debate, into a winner and a loser, someone who's right and someone who's wrong. How we can avoid that is just say all these opinions are valid, and let's hear everybody else's viewpoint on this as well. We don't need to take sides. In fact, actually, let's understand all the different ways we can think about this issue, because together we'll come up with a better solution.
Mm.
So the diversity of thinking, we want diversity of thinking. We think
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing that breeds creativity, but really when we hear viewpoints of people we don't agree with, we instantly go, I don't agree with that, and here's why. In fact, if you can hold back on that a little and just say, that's a really interesting perspective, it's different to mine, can you tell me a little bit more about why you think that? Then we start to change the dialogue.
Yeah.
So there are a few little methods you can use to build trust and respect. One of those things, of course, be vulnerable, be real, open it up for others. And secondly, be willing to respect that people have different opinions, and they all add value and color and dimensionality to issues. And let's actually get them all on the table and use all of that input to try and think through what's a way we can solve this together.
Yeah.
And the payoff to that is really significant, because if you can get a team of people willing to tackle the really uncomfortable conversations together, you would be absolutely amazed at what they can come up with. Then that when there's the crisis, when the pressure's on, we really can think through stuff because we're willing to listen and we're willing to share. And it's through that human experience, that knowledge we bring together, that we can actually be creative.
Yeah. Absolutely. As you were talking through that, the trust and respect rings true so much, and particularly that debate where we really feel as though we need to debate things and be right or be convinced otherwise. But I think what you were explaining there is the epitome of, a really great sporting team that wins the premiership. And I'm thinking AFL because I'm in Victoria. But
Yeah.
when you look at the team dynamics in premiership teams, they have what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, it's really that taking that strengths-based mindset,
Mm.
strengths-based approach, appreciating each other's strengths. Because a really great team, they all play the roles that they own on the field to their own strengths, and they respect that. So
Mm.
what we're not asking for is the center half to go and kick the goal. We're asking for the center half stay in the center half. Let's let the center half play his best or her best, and let's take it from there. So
Mm.
I totally agree with you that sports metaphor is a really, really useful one to try and remember in teams as well. Because what we're very, very quick to have a crack at each other's, deficiencies or perceived weaknesses or things where they're not doing the right thing. When really, if we actually just lean into, okay, that's not their strength, whose strength is this, and how can we leverage that person's strength and knowledge
Yeah.
and let them elevate all of us and inspire us to think differently, then we can actually be, then it's possible to be high performing. Then it's possible to find synergy.
Yes, absolutely. You talk about being an independent thinker while staying relevant in the age of AI. So what does that look like for leaders today?
Yeah, look, AI is a topic right now, isn't it? It's all anybody's thinking about and talking
Yep.
about. I think that AI, there's a really great book by a man called James Meritosis. I think I've got it here with me actually, but I won't. Yes, it's called Human Work, and he's got an institute, really fantastic resource actually, because really in the age of AI, what's going to become more relevant are human skills, our essential human capabilities. And the World Economic Forum publishes a report every couple of years on the future of work as well. What they're saying in both kind of areas is true in that is that what's going to be more relevant for us in the future the skills that machines can't do. So it's things like analytical thinking, creative thinking, it's resilience, so and empathy, and the ability to connect well with others and collaborate well with others. Those skills, aside from the abilities to actually work with technology, so technological intelligence or digital intelligence, of course, those things are going to be important. But aside from those, all of those human skills, the human work is what's going to be more relevant in the future. So curiosity is really critical, and to be curious, to be more curious and to elevate our human capacities, we need to be more independent thinkers. We need to think more independently. And I say that because we're so influenced by algorithms and biases and assumptions and things that come into our thinking that dilutes it and pollutes it. So Adam Grant has written another great book called Think Again, and he talks about think like a scientist.
Yeah.
Like, ask hypotheses, test your assumptions, go and find the evidence that supports what you think. So learning how to think for leaders and putting a value on good thinking is how we start to remain, how we stay relevant, but also how we upskill the people around us to stay relevant in the age of AI. AI is taking over the cognitive load of repeatable administrative, methodical kind of thinking tasks. So let it do that stuff and keep your brain space for the stuff that the machine can't do. So how do we actually start to put a focus on that? It's create space for thinking, put a value on it, ask people to come to meetings and workshops with their thoughts already considered, having done the research before they walk in the room. Like stop winging it, walking in with, oh, well, I just think this. You think this because it's your opinion. What's your opinion based on? What's the fact of your opinion? What's the experience that's relevant that you've got to share in this environment? So think before you speak.
Love that.
But create also spaces for thinking. So make meetings moments where we are actually thinking together, where we're problem solving, not reporting, not justifying our positions, actually places where we are doing good thinking together. So we have to start creating a value on that thinking time and that, connected creativity, the problem solving, the kind of the moments where we can actually start to just realize what's the opportunity from this problem. And so that's I think where we can stay relevant. It's a super important capability. And leaders need to lead the way in putting a value on it, asking people to do good thinking, but also creating a space for it.
Absolutely. The creating space for it is a really good point, because often people aren't given that space to be able to think. They're tasked to do.
Yeah, and that's back to that productivity challenge, right? So we think the other great thing that AI does is that it speeds the thinking process. It speeds the cognitive load. And then what we think is, great, I can pack more into that space I've just created. Not actually try and maintain the space in my day, in my calendar, in my week for me to to know I'm going to get to a tricky problem. I'm going to get to a presentation I have to prepare. I'm going to get to a proposal I have to write. I'm going to get to a a difficult meeting that I need to really think about how I'm going to approach. Make the space for those things in
Yes.
your day so
Yeah.
that when you get there, you've actually got the moment to expand the way you're actually approaching it. And if our day is packed all day and then at night we're responding to emails, there's no space. There's
Yeah.
just no space. So,
Yeah.
yeah, productivity can be a thinking killer, an innovation killer. It can be.
Definitely. I can
Mm.
see that for sure.
Mm.
Now, what is one simple shift that leaders can make today to improve collaboration in their team and to reduce dysfunction?
Yeah, look, I actually really love that question because, like, okay, let's just get down to what are the habits leaders can start adopting that
Mm,
will open up those spheres to create opportunities for people to be more curious, for people to connect on a deeper level, for people to find synergy and be able to approach these problems with composure and calm.
mm,
I think there's some really simple things, and I feel like a broken record because I talk a lot about this in purpose, passion, and performance as well when it comes to leadership behaviors.
mm,
Ask more questions.
mm.
Just ask a few more questions, and actively listen to what people have to say. Because we're time poor, we just think, I've just got to get this all across. I'm just going to tell everybody what I think and what I need them to do and what the problems are. And then I'm going to go, and I'm
Mm.
going to let them solve it. We've got this mindset that, our teams are just people where we just like delegate stuff and we leave them.
Yeah.
Um, create that opportunity, share with people what your prerogative is, but ask the question, okay, what are you guys thinking about this? What's the issue? What's the challenge? Who needs to solve it? How should we solve it? What are your thoughts around the best way to go? So
Mm.
actually ask more questions and actively listen by paraphrasing. So is this what I'm hearing you say? Is this the meaning behind what you're saying? Um, do that because you're demonstrating that you're listening. So ask more questions and listen. That will elicit more thinking from people.
Mm.
Um, these are really great questions. These are two really great questions you can start to build into your habit profile. What else should we do?
Yeah.
It's such a simple question. Just what else? What else? What else? What else? What that does is it gets people who are locked in the debate out of the debate
Yeah.
because there's other people in the space who might have a thought that's different to what they're both arguing on. So ask the what else question to cancel the debate. Ask another really great question. I learned this from one of my clients. He asks this at the end of every meeting because safety has become a major focus for them.
Yeah.
He asks, what's not being said that needs to be said?
Yeah. That's a great question.
A good question. I love that question. What's not being said that needs to be said? So if there's anything anyone's like sitting on going, yeah, look, it's probably nothing, or I just don't quite agree. It gives them the opportunity to speak. So that's really critical. Um, so question asking and those two questions are really fundamental. Good little things you can do. Be more open with your own fears and concerns and regrets and your own internal struggles. You are not expected to have all the answers and have it all worked out as a leader. In fact, the more you're willing to just go, I actually don't know. What do you think?
Mm.
That's really powerful in teams because your team wants to help you. They want to be involved. They want to support you, especially if they already respect you and love working for you and with you. They will step up. So
Yeah.
be a little bit more vulnerable. As I said before, ask people to come to meetings with their thinking already done. Ask
Yes.
them to apply that rigorous intellectual curiosity to what they already think. So that will actually automatically generate better thinking. Go and use the chat GBT. Test it before you come into the room. Tell us what it told you. That's
Yeah.
great stuff. That helps us,
Yeah.
And I think little other things, which are really obvious things, but ask, when you're generating a conversation in a team or with somebody else, start with their viewpoint first, especially if you're a leader. Don't share your opinion or your view first, because you just will shut it down. Remember, there's a power dynamic going on.
Yeah.
You do have more authority. You have more power. So let others speak before you speak, because that gives them, you're not going to flavor the lens. You're not going to create the frame too soon, sort of thing. So that's a good thing. And look, I think the last thing for me is really just challenge yourself to catch your own, I call them bands, biases, assumptions, norms, self-limiting beliefs. Catch yourself in your own biases, in your own assumptions, because, they limit us in terms of ways of thinking about things differently. So when you notice you've used a particular word, or you've said, look, I would have just assumed we'd all had this knowledge, like, catch yourself say that. It's like, oh, wow, I did make an assumption.
Yeah.
And I do need to be clearer, or challenge my own thinking. So those really, I think, are just some ways we can, as leaders, actively generate that sphere of curiosity, connectedness, and calm within our own environments.
Yeah, they're such great tips. Awesome, Stephanie. And I think that's such a perfect tone to leave our conversation on, because you've covered off on everything so incredibly well. And, really, I think you've got people thinking about some of the assumptions that they make and like their biases, but increasing their self-awareness. But just those really simple questions that you can ask, to get curious, but to get more out of people and get them more curious about, okay, so what else is there? So amazing, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being part of Leading You.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. It's been a real joy talking to you today. And love your podcast. Love listening to you. And I'm just glad I could be part of your story today. So thank you. Thanks for sharing the message.
Pleasure.